to the fence to create more of a green fence instead of just a see-through metal fence. The commission spent a lot of time talking about the views from Market Square into this patio and buffering views from the building. I think this proposed plan is starting to accomplish that by allowing for a taller canopy tree and some understory plantings as well. I think as this plan is more fully developed, we would want to look closely at the dimensions of the planting beds and work with the petitioner to ensure that that corner feature planting bed is sufficiently sized to allow for the plants to mature and grow over time. With respect to other conditions of approval that are outlined in your staff report, there are some comments regarding the proposed lighting. The uplighting is recommended to be removed from the plan, mainly because it's atypical of the Market Square nightscape. Certainly if the commission is open to the idea of highlighting those trees, that you could take action on that this evening or direct the petitioner to wait until the rest of the lighting is installed and really see what the plant material looks like, what should be highlighted at night. And the caution is to just respect the Lake Forest nightscape, which is pretty dark throughout town. Has a very subtle appearance to it. Also, staff is recommending that we provide a after installation and inspection of the lighting at night to ensure that the light fixtures and the amount of lighting that's proposed on the patio does not overwhelm the streetscape in that location. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, but we have worked with the petitioner. We do support the concept of this landscape plan and the proposed patio modifications with the conditions of approval outlined in your staff report.
All right, Megan, so just to clarify, the plan that you are recommending approval of is the one that has the boxwood hedge, not the ground cover.
Correct. That's being presented as the preferred plan
Thank you. I just
tonight.
was not clear on that. And now's an opportunity for the other commissioners to address questions to either the presenter or the staff, if you have any. Sure, Bob.
Just wondered, your lighting designer, is there a like a target foot candle rating that he thinks that patio will be at, or?
I think the report in the document I provided the committee suggests that on average the bulbs will produce what would be the equivalent of 10 watts of light or something like that. He does not have a specific readout on what the lighting would be in the various spots on the patio. I think realistically it's a difficult calculation to make, at least accurately, especially given it's outside and things like that.
So, not too impressed with that answer, but the question I would like to follow up with is, what is the intent relative to, and could you put the existing picture of the existing patio up for us, the photograph actually? It's kind of helpful for us to see that as we're talking about this. Compared to the lighting level that's out there today, how would you describe what you're proposing to do? Is it to maintain a similar level? Is it to increase the level?
I would say it's probably maybe 3/4 of what's out. I'm sorry, what's out there, and I think more importantly, you can't really see in this picture, but there are three. It's just well. Let's go back a second. Lights have been added over time in different ways in different spots, in not a very consistent manner. Right now, there are 3 eave lights along the top, which is why you can kind of see. See, right along there, you see there's a beam of light there. There are 4 lights along the bottom that kind of shine up. So there's a big wall of light right there, which is probably more than you really want. On the exterior and places like this and places over here where there's seating, there's almost no light. So I'm saying that in general, I think the net amount of light will be roughly 3/4 of what's out there. Is just be more evenly distributed so that There aren't kind of hot spots and dead spots, and just a better
So
kind of
that's
average light
helpful
throughout the
because I
square.
think as a goal, it's good for us to understand what you're shooting for, and that helps us react to what you're proposing. And I don't think anybody would argue about a general leveling of the light level. I think the staff conclusion on the uplighting was they were worried about the upward light pollution, particularly at the perimeter of the property, I think. So other questions for?
I do have questions about lighting, if I
Sure.
may. And I greatly appreciate your producing a light quantity report by Mitchell B. Cohn. And I was wondering if he was here to discuss his report.
He really does not. He's certainly not here. There's not a specific report that, you know, quantifies the amount of light, of new light that will be there. I mean, I pretty much cut and pasted what he sent me regarding to levels of lights and put it in a report that was provided to the commission.
Okay. Well, maybe then as two laymen, we could talk a little bit about the lights. As I understand, and I wanted to focus on the perimeter post lights. As I understand the current situation, we have 2 perimeter post lights.
They weren't really perimeter. They aren't really perimeter. They're kind of stuck in the middle in kind of random spots.
Okay.
Good. One
Well-
is here, and one is out here.
Right. So more or less perimeter post lights. And now we're going to replace them with, or as proposed, you intend to replace them with 7.
Right, which
Perimeter.
ironically, because the post lights that are existing there each have 4 bulbs,
Yes.
we have more post lights and less light.
Gotcha. So you're going to have 7 perimeter post lights.
Each of which would have 1 bulb.
And as I understand it, the fixtures are going to be optically clear in all directions.
That's true.
And so that the light which is emanating from the bulb upwards is going to go upwards. The light which is emanating from the bulb inwards from the perimeter is going to go into your lot. And the light which is emanating from the bulb outwards, away from the perimeter, is going to be going into the public spaces and the neighbors' properties.
Right, as it does now.
Correct. Well, currently, of course, you have they're shielded on top, the 2 that you have.
Sure.
And so I was just wanted to, so my understanding is correct about that.
Sounds like it, yes.
And it sounds as if, based on the dimensions you provided, that the height of the bulb is going to be at about 8 feet 1 inches or so, which is above the head of a human being. Wouldn't you agree then that 3/4 of the light being produced by these perimeter fixtures is going to be either directed away from your property and towards the public parkway and other people's parkway, or up into the sky, and that only 1/4 of the light being produced by these lamps will be directed usefully into your property in order to assist like the fellow who was all upset about not being able to see his food. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I think there are parts of it I would agree with, and parts of it I would disagree with. I think the sconces are clearly not shining light off of anywhere other than, I mean, the light from the sconces being reflected onto the patio, that's pretty consistent.
Yes.
I mean, is light escaping out of the top and going somewhere? Yeah, I'm not sure.
On a
I
star
don't really have
basis,
a great answer. I think that the people who kind of laid out the lighting and have done lots of exterior patio space with, that is next to other spaces, and this is kind of the scheme that they've come up with that creates a level of lighting for the patio that's consistent and yields a good dining experience and is not so overpowering that would detract from the rest of the area.
I was just hoping that we could agree that 1/4 of the light that's going to be produced by the 7 perimeter fixtures is going to be going usefully into your property, and the rest will be going elsewhere, which may open up an opportunity, was my point. So that was my question, and I think we had a good answer to that, and I thank you very much for it. I wanted to then, another thing I found very useful besides the light quantity report prepared by your consultant was the pictures, which you very kindly provided. And this is really, people are doing this now, and it's great, where they provide examples of things, because I think it shows why things work and why things don't work. And I was especially excited because this sort of arcade that you show at Market Square, I think it is, well, it's an arcade, where there are similarly optically open fixtures from which the lamp, in this case, is suspended. And as you say, it shows a precedent for the use of optically open fixtures around the lamps. I think that it also does show, and I asked whether you would agree with this, those optically open fixtures are underneath the roof, a ceiling, if you will.
Yeah, but not a Northern Trust, I don't have a picture of Northern Trust Bank's lights, but those are certainly not underneath a roof. Also over on Jim Meniere's building where the lantern and stuff is, again, I don't have pictures of that one, but they're clearly lamps with open tops that are not underneath structures.
I understood. I was just focusing on this, and I was going to go to the other ones also, because I think they all have a story to tell about lighting. and I'm not, I just pointed out that for a number of these, they are in fact under, and so that the light which goes up then doesn't go up into the sky, but instead bounces off of the usually light-colored ceiling and comes back down. I again, focusing on those, I think you're right. One maybe, well, I don't know. One is certainly Market Square because I recognize it, but in both of those cases, as opposed to being located on the perimeter of the area which is being lighted, right? They are located in the middle of the area which is being lighted, so that the light escaping in all directions is not, doesn't represent a waste or perhaps even an intrusion, but is functional, if I may say so. Just a thought.
Okay.
Looking at your pictures, I'm looking at the one at like 2 and 3 o'clock, and the one at like 7 and 8 o'clock. Again, so moving away, I just mentioned those things to you by way of thinking about lights. And,
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you that we thought about a lot of different things when it came to lighting. Closed, open, more light, less light. You know, and the trick is to strike a balance in that we want it aesthetically attractive. We want it to yield enough light to provide a pleasant dining experience. My concern to a certain degree with this is that there may not be enough light. And you know, that said, given, you know, I think going back, and we have some people who've done lots and lots of restaurants and looked at this really, really carefully, and this is the best they can come up with, given the kind of goals that we've established about what we want to accomplish. And you know, we could do it a dozen different ways, and you know, this is kind of where we think we are. This is where we think we are with it. I think we think this looks pleasant. It looks attractive. Aesthetically, it gets what we want. Yeah.
Well, can I ask a question?
I had another question, if
Sure,
I could.
go
Just to
ahead.
continue with the examples which the gentleman very kindly gave us. Again, we see these sort of carriage lights. Again, it's sort of like the 10 and 11 o'clock of the pictures you provided us, and the 4 or 5 o'clock of the pictures you gave us. And again, the point I would make is that as opposed to being at the perimeter of the area which they're seeking to illuminate, right, surrounded by areas that they also don't wish to illuminate, those lights, which are door lights essentially, right, are against the wall, right? And so they are not illuminating areas which are not intended to be illuminated, the neighbors' areas or the parkway or whatever. but instead they're illuminating the area in front of the door. And would you agree that's a difference relative to the position of your lights?
It's certainly different. I think the point, my point in pointing out that open-top lights are not an uncommon thing throughout Market Square and throughout downtown Lake Forest, whether uncovered or covered, is consistent. I think that's the only point I'm trying to make there is simply that, this is by no means unusual or a one-off or something that's not found in downtown Lake Forest. In fact, it's relatively common.
Can I follow up on that real quick? Because I think last time you presented a plan, weren't there lights? Didn't you have them in the middle of the patio? Weren't there a
No.
couple? I thought you had like 9 of them and there were a couple in the
They
middle.
were all, the only,
Didn't you have
lights have
like,
always been through around the perimeter, whether it's along the walls of sconces or along the fence. There was never, the only lights that we've talked about interiorly would be ones up lights in the tree beds lighting up the trees.
oh, okay, because I thought you had posts inside the interior.
No, in fact, one of the things we want to get away from, and one of the problems we have is when you get, sitting in the patio is interesting because it's always an ebb and flow. It's busier, it's not busier, and the sun goes all over the place. How we set the restaurant up for lunch is entirely different than how we set it up for dinner because how the sun lights up the patio. So to get things out of the middle there, like light posts and umbrellas and things like that, is part of the goal. So we're as flexible a space as we can. And I'd also go as far as in regards to lighting. Yeah, this is certainly not lighting that we're going to be using in January. I mean, lighting in the patios, comes on between, never really earlier than 8, given how late it stays up, and they're off by 10:30 or 11, and pretty much by September we're done. So the relatively, the amount of lighting that we're talking about is a relatively compressed period of time, and I'd argue that, after 5:30 in downtown Lake Forest, there just isn't a lot of light because there's just not a lot of people.
Well, I don't think I'm more worried that in the interior of your patio, you're not going to have enough light.
That is something that I worry about too. I
Yeah,
think
'cause you just want to make sure that the light's not going, I mean, did you explore,
inside.
maybe if you put a top on there, would that direct the light more?
we kind of went back with the lighting consultant. He's like, what, given the amount of light these things are going to push out, it's not going to make that much of a difference.
What about, I know this is probably tacky, but I'll ask it anyways because I don't know. What about like stringing lights across? You know how I've seen sometimes in outdoor patios they have, I mean,
It's
that's not
something we
really the
thought about.
ambiance.
I think that, I don't think the city's real wild about us hanging things from
Yeah,
things.
I know, I'm just trying to think how to get your lighting more in the
I
middle.
think that, I think at a minimum what's going to happen is knowing us is that we'll lay out a plan. We'll look at it. I mean, the city's been flexible about, working with it. Is it too much light? And I'm sure that they'll be equally willing to consider the fact that maybe it's not enough light. Maybe they have to be 60-watt bulbs or something like that.
Can you put up that other picture where we were looking at the 2 trees and the lighting again? Because I just wanted to point out something about that too. No, the photograph you had of the really nice photograph with the 2 elms and the lit building.
One more. That one.
Yeah, that's so pretty. Well, now if you're going to be looking at this patio, we're going to be missing 1 elm, right, on the left there.
No, it's going to be replaced. I wouldn't say missing.
Okay, so it's going to be smaller, much smaller. And then you're going to be taking out the understory trees?
We're taking out, there is an understory tree over here that you can't you can't see that would be gone, and this one would also be gone. There's one here that remains, there's one here that remains.
Okay, so just the other one there. Okay, so there's a little bit of screening of the light. So that definitely is going to make a difference too in how the light appears from Market
Could you
Square.
mind leaving that one up, but you keep going away
No,
from it? It's
yeah.
the only exhibit that you didn't put in our package, so all the rest we can
Yeah, it
refer
doesn't
to.
put-
This
it
is the
doesn't
one
print
I
well.
keep, I'm trying to look at some things.
So in that picture, those 2 lampposts are lit, right?
Yep. Actually,
And you're saying-
yeah, I guess they both are.
And so those are going to be brighter.
No, they would be, no.
Those are brighter, right?
These are more bright.
Those are brighter than what you're going to
What I would,
have.
the best way for me to describe it is that the amount of light that's coming from those 2 lamps right there is basically the same amount of money that would be coming from the 7 lamps that would be running along the perimeter of the
It's a little
of the
bit
patio.
different.
And are those
but it's
lamps
missing
taller or shorter than the ones you're,
Taller.
those are taller, okay, so,
Because that fence goes around.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Bob, sorry.
As the staff indicated, they're after this gets installed, they're gonna make an evaluation when it's lit up to see how it's working. Obviously, if you did need more, it's not hard to bump up the wattage of the lamps. Did your consultant say there's like, lamps that are smaller than this, if that becomes necessary?
I mean, there's smaller bulbs, yeah, I think they're, I mean, we have 40
are
watts, I think there are
40s.
25 watt bulbs
Oh, that's interesting.
that would be the same size and such.
Can I ask a question?
Now's the time.
Time?
Now's the time.
Okay. The illumination of, the proposed illumination of the patio, as seen from the outside, is compared, I think in your consultant's report, to being comparable in some way to the brightness of a full moon on a clear night. I just wanted to ask you whether you consider that to be an acceptable standard or an extreme imposition on the community.
You know, I wish I had a great answer for that, and part of the, you know, this kind of stuff is that until you, I mean, actually so much stuff with a restaurant is, you know, you really can't tell until you kind of really get there. You can make your best guess, and we've got professionals kind of, this is their best guess, and this is what they do, and they do it a lot. You know, might they be wrong? Yep. Again, the city is, you know, talked about being flexible, although that if there being too much light, and I'm sure they'll be flexible about not enough light. And I think we've kind of established this is where we want to start. We think, you know, everyone thinks it's enough light. And yeah, there's no 100%, yeah, this is definitely what we need.
But do you have no appreciation for the argument at all that since 3/4 of the light is leaving your property without ever being on your property, that perhaps another design would be allow you to have more light? I agree with you. I'm worried about there not being enough light.
Yeah,
I'm older, so I trip and it's bad. I'm just wondering. I did trip. I'm pretty-
Right, I guess my argument would be, let's go to it.
I mean, have you looked at shielded lights or directed lights?
Yeah, we've really, again, Mark Nauer's designed probably 4,000 restaurants, many of which have patios. Mitchell, the lighting guy, has done any number of buildings and such like that. We've considered really all the options that we have. I appreciate the argument that only 1/4 of the light is going in there. You know, in a perfect world, would it be great to shield them from the outside so that all light floods inside? Yeah, that would be great, except it would look really kind of crappy.
So let's move on, if we could, to, I think we, you know, get the general tenor of the lighting conversation. Are there other questions for staff or the petitioner with respect to the, and if you have another lighting one we haven't covered, by all means, but I'll ask Kathy a couple questions. Kathy, the treatment of the corner, and we keep going away from that picture I like so much.
I know, go back to it.
I know, sorry. The treatment of the corner here, as it exists, is much different than the treatment of the corner proposed, and it's partly because this is a much greater area that is dedicated to outside of the fence. Your recommendations are for a 10 by 10 minimum area. This area looks to be quite a bit larger than that, maybe twice that, or maybe even greater, just by my untrained eye, or even my trained eye. And would you say, I have two questions. First of all, could you confirm that? And second of all, would you agree that is your condition intended to be a minimum of 10 by 10, or just to be the configuration now shown in the petition?
I can respond to that.
Thanks.
The 10 by 10 dimension was recommended by the city arborist to allow adequate space for a new shade tree, a new elm, plus some understory plantings. That's really, he feels, the minimum needed for those trees to survive, to thrive, to grow. We don't really have dimension drawings in the packet at this point. These are still preliminary drawings, so that condition is really to assure that an adequately sized planting bed is established as part of this redevelopment.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the staff or the petitioner?
Well, Megan, since we're on landscaping, let me ask you a question. First of all, it's shocking we're taking out that elm tree. Because we talked so much before about saving it. And you had mentioned before that Bartlett thought it was in a good condition. Dave Story said it was going to survive.
Right, I think one of the things that happened is that in the summertime, when it's fully engaged, it looks okay. If you would drive by it this afternoon or tomorrow and take a look at it, it's startling how much of the top of it is gone. And I think that at first glance, we wanted to do everything that we could to save the tree. And I think as we kind of spent more time thinking about that and looking at that, certainly Mike, the city's arborist, became more and more concerned about, gee, are we just doing a lot to save a tree that's not going to last a lot longer? And that isn't, as he kind of states, representative of what a good elm really looks like. And he's also getting to the point where, given its proximity to the corner, where so many pedestrians, walk and are about, that maybe it's if there were a time to consider removing it and take the opportunity to replace it and the tree across from it, which again is an ash tree that's coming out anyway. There are a lot of good reasons, despite losing a significant tree, to really go forth and do it. This would be the right time to do it, because long term, at some point, it's going to need to be done anyway. And if we start now, it's got that many more years to grow and mature and kind of complement the rest of the of Market Square, which I think is what we all kind of want.
So we're going down that path now, and it just makes me think about the other tree. Because, holy cow, this is going to be such a change for your...
Right. I think
oh
part of
my
the problem
gosh.
too with the one in the corner is that the tree bed there, as it stands right now, is relatively small. When the patio was designed, there's a walkway that kind of cuts right into it,
Yeah.
and that's not helped it any. One of the things we agreed to with the other elm tree is, while originally we wanted a smaller tree bed, we've agreed with the city that we'll keep the tree bed there exactly as it stands now. So it simply has more room to continue to grow. In fact, one of the reasons the pavers keep kind of going all over the place is it's doing so well. It's more the other tree that is just, it's squished in a bad spot, and it's just, it's going to need to be replaced sooner or later, and now is the kind of natural time to do it, especially you want some consistency with the tree across the way and overall with downtown and the Market Square.
So is your plan to put then an elm in this one corner on the left side, and then when this other one fails, you're going to put another elm over there?
When the big one fails?
Because, I mean, they're both relatively the same age, so they...
Yeah, I think,
I mean,
again,
life,
they
right?
are, I believe they are the same age. The differences are, though, that this one here is just, it's in a bad spot. Its tree bed is really, really small, because whenever they put it in, there's a sidewalk that almost runs up right against it. So it hasn't had the same opportunities as the one on this side. Certainly, if this one ever goes, and it's of an age that it may well happen, and it would be a natural, more than likely, given the fact there are elms all over the place, we would probably replace it with an elm. But I think that's
Okay, I guess
certainly
I'm just
more years
confused.
away.
So I'm just trying to understand that. So the left side, the left elm, it seems like the planting bed now is smaller. Is that true? So I mean, I thought that you had to have a planting bed that followed the drip line of a tree for it to survive. And I'm just wondering about the viability of a tree that you're putting in a smaller tree bed. And then what are we going to do when the other elm fails, which probably is not that many years ahead? What kind of tree will that be? And is that going to be in the same place or a different location?
I wouldn't mind helping you out on that one a little bit, because I think that the drip line of a tree theory is, that's a
oak?
nice standard if you got the luxury of doing it. But I mean, I walk through downtown Chicago every day, and the trees are just growing under the sidewalk, so they can do it. I think that the reason we have an arborist is to help us with that, and so I think that to the extent that an arborist has looked at this for us and has told us that a 10 by 10 area is minimally required for another elm tree in this location, and
It's
he
gonna survive.
expects it should be at least a 4-inch elm tree, and you got brick pavers surrounding that, which help add moisture to the ground. That probably does it for me personally. I wouldn't challenge the city arborist.
No, I'm not challenging. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering. I mean,
Yeah.
and the plan going forward. I mean, because the landscape plan is not really detailed, so it's hard to
No, and it's
get an
not
accent.
included, and I assume that it would be forthcoming in a separate package, is that correct?
If the commission would like to see a more detailed landscape plan
Yeah,
as
that
this
would be
moves
really nice.
forward,
'Cause see,
then
that's why I'm asking these
certainly that
questions,
could
'cause
be
I
a
really can't
condition,
see it.
Thank you.
As part of your motion.
Appreciate that. I just took.
Because
that
then
one
the
for
question
granted.
comes in, I don't even see where the understory trees are listed on this.
Yeah, they're not.
And then ground cover too. So it's kind of hard to get an idea of
Yeah.
what we're really talking about with the landscape plan.
Other question, we have time for, we have a tendency to spill right over to the deliberations, which if you'll humor us. We don't like to do that, but we have a tendency to do it. I do it. Any other questions for? Now's an opportunity, if there's any public testimony on this issue, if anyone has any questions or comments, please come on up and give us your 2 cents or $5, whatever you got.
Hello, I'm Arthur Miller, 169 Wildwood Road. 3 points I would just kind of make about the lighting style. It is difficult to find exactly the right thing, and one thing, I actually have some of the same period as the Market Square. This is between the City Hall, which is 1898-99, and Market Square, which is 1915-16. That was sort of anti-industrial, anti-urban period. Arts and crafts movement, and there's a lot of lighting out there for people who have bungalows and stuff like that. We have some of it at our house. It usually has a hood over it or a cap on top, and it does direct the light, and it sometimes uses stained glass to mellow the light also. If an example, not at my house, but somewhere else would be the Ragdale Foundation, where the landscape architect Carol Yetkin a decade ago worked with them to come up with lighting. Now, their application was a little bit different, but they have arts and crafts fixtures on posts that control and direct the light where you want it to go. So that would be one suggestion. And that might lead me into saying that a very good investment in this case for the client might be working with a landscape architect. We've got some in town. Carol Yetkin isn't in town, but she's around here frequently, knows Lake Forest very well. And we have other good ones in town. Third, and instrumental in that, and maybe getting some help from the Lake Forest Garden Club, some of their members, they have a beautification committee that works with the city. They might be able to give free advice. That would be, they're very sophisticated. They really know stuff like this and could be very helpful to the people. Third thing would be, I think we're noticing here, we're calling it a patio, but I think we've changed from something that's a garden space to more of a terrace. It's going to be a different kind of character. The lighting changing, the character of the plant material is changing significantly. And I think, again, a landscape architect might help in dealing with that really change of feel. I don't know how that floor plan with the tables works out for the 140 diners compared to in the main dining room of the restaurant, if that's the same kind of ratio of space and things like that. But I think that it is a different character to have a terrace that's pretty much even level floor space, and that is for dining, but it has relatively little elsewise in terms of garden-esque or garden-y kind of things. And you can have container gardens, which have done to great effect in Market Square. At Lake Forest Bank, they've had them. And again, the landscape architect could help with that. A little burst of color here and there might break up some of the sense that it's just a terrace full of people. But again, I think that if it is what it is, then working with a landscape architect to maximize color, lighting, and things like that would be an excellent investment and really worth the money. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public testimony? All right, so now we have an opportunity to deliberate. I'm sure we have so many deliberations. Anyone want to jump in?
Well, I'll follow up from what Mr. Miller says. I think that's the problem. I think, I understand we have to make this restaurant viable. I mean, and we want to help you do that. It's a great restaurant, want to get seating out there, but the landscape is really important at this point because it's going to be dramatically changed. And as it's presented on that picture, it's framing the building as well as screening it from, you're screening the lighting, and you're also framing this beautiful building. Now that you're taking away a lot of that green, it's going to make it much more obvious. And I think there's ways to do that with minimal intrusion on your seating if you had a professional landscape plan that maybe looked at that. I think.
I'm going to argue that Mark Nauer is a professional landscape and that's an architect, and that's kind of what we got. I mean, if you want another one, I can go back and get another one, and at some point there becomes, an issue that, at some point, if this gets pushed off so long, this becomes a project for next year.
So I haven't seen enough detail, I guess, in the plan to really see if it's there, because I keep having questions about, the boxwood's great. That's a great addition to do the boxwood along the fence. I think that'll border it or buffer it a little bit. I don't know I guess I just don't know enough without a landscape plan.
Other deliberations?
I do have deliberations, and, unless Mr. Ransom wishes to.
No, you go ahead, John.
My deliberation is as follows. The impulse towards dark skies is integrally related to the impulse towards historic preservation, and as I think about this, I see a lighting plan which appears to unnecessarily emit 3/4 of the lighting off-site, which causes me concern. I think that it would be advisable to condition any approval of this petition on agreement between the petitioner and city staff to a redesigned perimeter lighting fixture, which would minimize illumination of the sky, public ways, and neighboring areas, while maintaining or perhaps even improving, if necessary, the proposed level of on-site illumination. And when you're sending 3/4 of your light off-site, that should be very doable.
The only part of the proposal I have a problem with is a little more detailed on the landscaping plan. Our chairman has gone back to this picture a number of times, and we really don't get a sense of the landscaping that we may get from this picture. And more detail would be appreciated. I think we could, come to a better conclusion.
I'm unclear what that looks like.
Well, I'm sure, as you said, you have a very good landscape architect, and I'm sure they've done detailed drawings for their clients to show what they're proposing. So I'm sure that he could work with you on that. As far as the lighting goes, I have no problem with the lighting as it is. I know there's concern about dark skies, but we're talking about 740-watt bulbs in this area in a downtown area in which there's going to be illumination from other sources, preventing the so-called dark sky, which seems to be more of a concern in neighborhoods and residential areas, and not in particular to commercial areas. I think 40-watt bulbs as being proposed are very, very minimal. The staff has proposed getting rid of uplighting, which it seems like the commission is tending to agree with, which eliminates some of the lost lighting that
The commission object if I just keep the original lighting as it stands?
Pardon?
Would the commission object if I keep the original lighting as it stands?
Well, that's not for me to decide. If you have a petition that doesn't have any lighting in it, then there may be nothing for us to act on. However, once you bring a petition before us, there may be things that we'll do,
Totally understood.
So I don't have a problem with the lighting as it is at all. I think, you know, looking at the pictures in here, you know, gives a false equivalency to what we're gonna have there. Really don't know what the lighting and wattages are in these pictures that Commissioner Travis was comparing to what we, you know, what's being proposed. So I'm actually fine with the lighting. I know that at one point that we had a lot more lighting, and it was brought down to 7 posts from, I think you're originally talking about 12. So there's been a reduction there. And, you know, having been in the restaurant business for a while, before my current career, I can appreciate what you're trying to achieve here. As far as the patio, the materials for the patio and stuff, I'm fine with that and the fencing.
I didn't know you were in the restaurant business.
Yes. And luckily for all you, I got out of it. So.
All right, well, Bob, did you have something?
Only if, I just wanted to understand, it sounded like the staff had said, you know, that we would defer the uplights, but they would refer that or review that after everything is completed and see if
Actually, I think
that's
the
still-
condition is to not include the uplighting and to review the lighting
After it's complete,
Afterwards.
everything else is
Right.
completed.
That's
No,
right.
okay.
That's the
That's
current,
what I
that's their
understood.
recommendation, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I understood, yeah, okay.
So, interestingly enough, I wasn't here for the first proposal, so I wanted to see what my fellow commissioners had to say about this. Art Miller was the only one who brought up the historic context to this patio, and I assume from the lack of documentation or comment from the staff on it that there's no real historic context for us. So we're dealing with the Historic Preservation Commission ordinance, but we're not dealing with for a historic relic of a garden or something like that, which is good. However, you still have a fairly high bar because you're adjacent to Market Square, and there's very few things in this community that come to the level of Market Square with respect to historic stuff. So that's just the territory that you showed up into. The lighting is a kind of an interesting proposition. There are all kinds of ways to do photometric studies. We've asked for them in the past and usually gotten them. They're not hard to do. All of these light fixture manufacturers have photometrics for their specific fixtures on their website, and they're really easy to come across, and a consultant can put them together. But they really don't convey very much information to the pedestrian observer, because unless you're used to looking at them and understanding them, you don't know what you're looking at. The other thing about lighting is that we react to it differently in different situations. And so here's a picture of what is probably a really bright light. And part of what's dramatic about this picture is the way that the lighting, you know, comes in and out of the scene. It's bright in some spots, it's dark in others. Makes it hard to eat. Really impossible to read a menu, even for a guy like me with glasses. But it's dramatic in the setting, and the setting, this is the view we have of the restaurant when we're not eating in the restaurant, when we're in Market Square. So I'm a little
And also this photograph was very well staged.
I agree, it's a nice photograph. The thing that I'm concerned about from kind of an overall point of view, and I will leave this, I won't try to solve it for you, I'll just leave it for you to consider and to work on, is that you're taking a space that's very dramatic and intimate, and you're making it into a larger, consistently lit, kind of different kind of venue. It'll become a different kind of venue. I'm convinced that it will. Whether it'll be a better venue or not, I don't know. You know, it's hard to say, but it will be different than this. It won't be as much of a garden as Art Miller said. It will certainly not be as intimate. And it certainly probably won't be too, it may or may not be dramatic, but from a lighting point of view, it probably won't be as dramatic, the uplights and the big trees and all this kind of stuff. So I lament the loss of it. And kind of when I when my intuition laments the loss of something, I kind of wonder why I would support it. Although at the same time, thanks for changing it. At the same time,
Yeah, because that's, I mean, that's kind of stuff that we're losing. I mean, I appreciate that picture's great,
I
and
understand.
at first glance, like we talked about, that's a great looking picture, and if you take some time,
the patron, not from the person who's driving through town. So at the same time, I fully support the investment and the changing of the guard in Lake Forest and new talent coming in and new operators and retailers, and I'm probably the first guy to accept change in that direction. I've not always been pleased with the results of giving a lot of latitude to retailers when that's happened. And so sometimes we get proposals from folks who come in. We say, well, it's not our favorite, but we understand you're trying to do business in Lake Forest. It gets approved, and then we don't like what we're left with. And sometimes they don't even live with the conditions of the approval, and we have a really hard time doing anything about it. Matter of fact, we've never been able to do anything about it, as far as I know. So all that being said, I'm inclined to support the proposal, but I would caution you to treat it with really kid gloves. And I think Art Miller's suggestion, a restaurant planner is not a landscape architect. I don't care how good he is. I've worked with lots of both. I can't find a landscape architect out there that would tell you that a restaurant architect is capable of doing a landscape garden.
you know,
Like
the
vice
trick-
versa, sure. I would say for myself that if we added the condition that the reviewer come back with a landscape plan and accept the other conditions of the staff, I could support that. I don't know if anybody else could.
I could.
Ask a question.
Sure, ask a
Would
question.
the landscape plan extend to lighting considerations or exclude lighting?
I think that we need to make that decision, whether we're happy with the lighting considerations or not. I think the petitioner needs to understand whether or not he has a solution that he can continue to plan and execute, or whether he's, out there enough in the weeds where it doesn't help him to get an approval of that. So my advice on that would be to give him a baseline of what we could approve on the lighting and tell him that we're happy to look at further modifications to that when he brings back a landscape plan, if we think that we're at that.
But wouldn't the landscape plan also lay out the outline of the patio and where the beds are going?
No, I think that we'd have to accept the current plan for that. If we're not comfortable with that, I don't think that we want a condition and approval based on a landscape plan. I think that the idea would be that the perimeter is defined per his proposal, and we would be coming back to see whether or not we like ground cover, boxwoods, what kind of trees, how they're, maybe how the trees are uplit, where there's seasonal flowers, that kind of thing. It's not a lot of area here, but it's important enough that, I think that we'd like to see some attention paid to it.
Yeah, because I'm thinking with a landscape plan, would a landscape architect have these angular beds? Would they soften it, or would they do something different that might enhance this in a smaller setting? I don't know, this is such an angular, I guess I'm just really unsure with this landscape plan. I don't know what we're getting here. It's hard to see. And that could really impact this greatly. I mean, the lighting is one thing, but the lighting can be really impacted by what you have in plant materials, and I don't have a great vision of that with this plan.
Well, suffice it to, I would guess that the petitioner's not necessarily excited about the notion of giving up a lot more area. I think we've heard that a number of times. So anything that a landscape architect would do here to increase the amount of landscape area.
Well, I'm not saying increase. I'm just thinking maybe he would know how to deal with such a limited time in a better way to have a better outcome for everyone,
We'll only know if we give an opportunity to.
Right, yeah. So I don't know.
Well, other deliberations, folks. Do we have a consensus of a direction here, or not really?
Well, I'm afraid I didn't quite understand the chair's comments relative to the role of lighting within the landscape plan.
So I look at it from the standpoint of the staff has looked at this closely. They've become comfortable with the lighting, with the getting rid of the uplighting. I think that's because the low-level bulbs that are being used, an amber-colored bulb that's a equivalent of a 10-watt bulb, you know, despite the fact that there are 7 of them, is quite a low level of lighting. And so I suspect that the staff has looked at that and said, well, not too worried about that level of lighting, even if it is more consistent than the current kind of, you know, bright patches and dark patches. Given their recommendation, I'm inclined to kind of support that in the absence of any other information. If they'd have not recommended that, I might have gone the other way on that. But that's kind of how I come out on it.
Okay.
So you don't have to agree.
I try to agree with the chair.
You don't have to.
So that the direction people might be moving in is having a contingency of something relating to an elaboration of the landscape plan?
Only if folks are interested. in-
That's where I'd be at. I'm kind of interested in what Bob's thinking.
I'm sorry.
What are your thoughts on,
Well, I agree with Kurt, and, you know, this level of light is, I don't think, going to be that impinging on a lot of areas at that wattage, so I have no problem with the lightings, and of course, subject to a later view of whether the uplights would be appropriate, but
so,
I would have no problem with, you know, having this, I don't know if that's the correct way, but, you know, approved subject to looking at landscape in the future.
so you'd be supportive of the petition as long as we had final approval of landscaping that returned to us? That's what you're thinking, Kurt?
Would it be the commission
Yeah,
or
that's what I
staff and
think.
chair?
But how would
No,
that
I
work?
think that would come back to us.
So
Yeah,
that-
to the whole,
Why wouldn't that be a continuous then?
It could be a continue. We could continue him. I mean, the only difference is that he knows that he can move forward with the rest of his work and permitting and all of that while he develops a landscape plan, but we would not expect, if you support that motion, you would not be expecting him to come back with a different layout of the perimeter, I don't think.
well, I'm not sure it can, I just say, I'm not sure it can be a continuance on the whole petition, because if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, it's all gonna come back and it's all gonna be, you know.
Yeah.
I think we need to.
Yeah, I think that,
I think we need to approve the
Yeah.
petition with the condition that with the added condition that a final landscape plan come back to us for, or a landscape plan come back to us for final approval.
okay.
I mean.
I'd like to ask for that motion.
Pardon?
I'd like to ask for that motion.
Okay. I would move to approve the petition based on the findings in the staff report and subject to the conditions therein, with the additional condition that a landscape plan be returned to the commission for final approval.
So the motion's been made by Commissioner Ransom. Does everybody understand the motion?
I think I do.
All right. Is
I
there a
do
second?
have one question.
Oh, sure,
It did
please.
say on there, you know, that it was subject to the review of the arborist and engineering staff, which would come first.
That would remain part of the review, and we would still see our landscape plan subject to that review. So they might do that both times. They'd probably do it at a, no?
But it would be reviewed before we looked at it?
Could you answer
or-
that for us?
Probably be reviewed on both.
The question is when staff review of the engineering and the landscape plan would occur.
In this circumstance, yeah.
If the commission grants approval of the overall layout, I think we can start working with the petitioner to finalize some of those site plans that are required for the building permit. And through that process, engineering staff and our city arborist will work closely with the petitioner and provide that information to the commission when the landscape plan comes back for review. Just so I'm clear, the approval would be based on the conceptual plan that's presented to the commission today, with the idea that the landscape beds may shift slightly.
No, I think that the beds shown as they're proposed is approved. If they want to shift them, they can always ask us for that and us follow up. But this is what we're approving is what's drawn. Not like a little bit over here, a little bit over there. This is,
With the condition that it be a 10-foot minimum. I
no,
think
with
that-
the way it's drawn, I believe. Yeah, and the condition, but the way it's drawn.
Right.
So
The-
there's
the-
something drawn that's greater than 10-foot minimum at the corner. So we're approving we're acting on what's drawn and the minimum, both. All right, is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Alfie. And I will ask if, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
One opposed, that passes. Congratulations. I will add one parting comment on the boxwoods. We've been told numerous times by landscape architects in Lake Forest that a little peekaboo effect is kind of nice in and out to see things. And, you know, maybe seeing some diners as we do in this diagram isn't so bad in some areas. And it's something to consider when you're doing your landscape plan, is it doesn't necessarily need to be a hedge of boxwoods. It can be something much more interesting than that.
Understood,
Look
thank
forward
you.
to seeing that. Congratulations, good luck with that.
Do we have that brick for her?
Yeah,
Yes,
don't throw the brick in.
Would you like the brick back?
All right.
There you go.
As they say downtown, that was easy. All right, our next petition is a continued consideration of a request for certificate of appropriateness approving facade modifications, demolition of the existing garage and a replacement garage at 326 East Westminster. So if the presenter is here, come on up and introduce yourself. Looks like we've got some more materials.
Love show and tell.
You could just put them there. I think that helps. Yeah. Perfect.
Great.
You want to see more closer?
No, I think it's okay. We'll never see them any closer than this. Unless we park across the street, I guess.
Right us in. Good evening, I'm Tom Hines, the architect on this proposal, and I'm back again this month. I was here last month, and we've made many changes to our proposal. We have, on the, is this going to work, you think?
Little AV help coming.
All right. The 8.5 by 11 copies show some of the things that I've seen around Lake Forest as to the use of stucco on eaves, foundations, and the walls themselves. The biggest change I think we made was going from a 2-car garage to this smaller, you can see right in here, it's 1-car garage. And the owners of this property have some medical conditions which require one of them to use a wheelchair, I guess all the time, and the other one from time to time, depending on weather or something like that. So we have a little more than one width of a 1-car garage, and that the ramp would come out of this breakfast area, come down to the level of the garage, and then go in. It's about a 1 foot, a little over a 1 foot difference in elevation from the breakfast room to the floor of the garage. Garage floor itself would slant slightly from the south end to the north end, so that any snow or ice or water or whatever comes out of the car would be naturally drained to the outside. The exterior of the house would be this stucco that you see the sample of over here, which is similar to the, let's see, here we go. That bank building that's on Western Avenue over here. I had it right in front. Gosh. Okay. I think on page 23, and on, oh, there it is, page 21, the Bay Tree National Bank and Trust. It doesn't, you can't really see it here, but some of these other photographs that you see, both before and after, have this smooth stucco finish, which you see there. Almost all of the 4-square houses that I've looked at and found in the older sections of town have stucco soffits, so we're going to abandon using wood up there and go with the stucco. The foundation has more than 50% stucco applied now, so we're gonna completely do the stucco all the way around the foundation. Some of it appears to have fallen off over on the west elevation. And so then the proposal I had for the porch out in front, we would continue with the stucco on that, and then to balance that, we would stucco the new attached garage on the back with stucco. So the entire building would be stuccoed from grade all the way up into the soffits. The roof of the porch, the house, and the new garage would all be the cedar shingles, which we have there. And I've attached onto the shingle some of the colors of the owners, who are both artists, fine arts, painters, I think. So I have some sculptures in there.
You need to use the microphone.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate that.
So this is what they want to do on the color. The one that's there is a little bit lighter. Then the wood windows are going to be about this color. The doors, they want this color. And I think those are the only colors. So it's a very minimal color scheme.
Can we get those samples up here? I'll come down.
And so the color of the building is going to change just a little bit. The front stairs, there was comments from the last meeting about having those remain as they exist. And the AZAC, that plastic wood, will not be used on this building in any place. What's on the building now will be removed. So we're going to go back to these natural materials. The chimney has been, I think, and I was only on this project about 10 days before the project was red tagged. The chimney had been completed, whatever they did to it, before I came on scene. It's the same width in the north-south direction. Above the roof is below the roof. This copper top on it, I don't know, I don't really know what the story is, how it got up there. But the last page of the 8.5 by 11s, these are the chimney caps that are still on site and were removed when that copper thing was put up on top. As soon as we can get a permit, the copper will come off and those chimney caps will go up on top. There's a mix of brick above the roof, which I don't know who made a decision as to what to use on that, but it's not too bad, and you can really hardly even see it from the street because of the low level of the sidewalk and the street compared to what the house is. Let's see. All the windows, as I mentioned earlier, are going to be replaced. They're all single pane glass, and a couple of them have storm windows, a couple of them, most of them do not. I don't know, there's no place in the house to maintain storm windows. So we'll put this house in good condition thermally. The roof of the porch out here, and the roof of the house, and the roof of the garage will all be spray foamed, so that we can get the R49 on that, which is what the Illinois Energy Code requires. And some of the walls have some amount of insulation in there. I haven't been able to do any investigation to find out what it is, and because there seems to be a couple of different pieces, but we're going to try and thermally make this building much better. And I think, landscaping. Good landscaping, yes. There's a huge canopy out at the front of this property. There we go. And so there's a large tree over in this corner of the property. There are other trees in the parkway and on the property to the east. And there's an older house over on the east side of this house, which also has large, very large trees. The tree that's out here is about a 30-inch oak. So the canopy on that 30-inch oak comes up well onto the building. So almost nothing grows in this front yard. This little area that's stippled in here is about the only grass, and it's awfully thin. Most of the other area is all with bark. And I wanted to put some trees in that when the large oak dies, it will have some material that'll be of some size and substance, which should be coming up. We put a line of these white pines along here because there's an apartment building on this side, very close to where this fence line is. The fence line itself will remain as it exists up the west side of the property, across the north, and actually over to where that one-car garage is. So that won't have to have anything done to it at all. There's one window, which is in what they're calling their master bedroom, which is right here. It currently is an awning window, which makes none of the windows in that master bedroom able to become an escape window, which the bedrooms need. So we'd like to replace that one window with a window similar to all the other bedroom windows so that it becomes an escape window. I think that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Chairman Parrots. This is another petition that was before the commission at the October meeting. Since that time, several modifications have been made. In general, the request that was presented in October requested approval of synthetic materials for the soffits, a detached garage, two-car garage. The commission expressed concern for the materials that were presented at that time, and the commission, as well as input from the neighbors, helped to guide the project that's presented to the commission this evening. Probably the most significant change is the size of the garage. The two-car garage has been reduced to more of a 1.5 size addition. The one-car garage with the addition of an accessible ramp that is required by the homeowners is currently proposed. The existing garage structure will be demolished as part of this request. Currently it's sited, I think, about 3 feet from the main house. So attaching the garage to the house allows for greater usability of the garage from the alleyway that's accessed from the north. The other significant change is with respect to the use of the stucco on the front porch, as well as the main body of the house and the proposed addition. There was a memo provided to the commission from the Preservation Foundation that did outline some suggestions for the treatment of the stucco as it hits the base of the house closer to grade. Staff is supportive of some sort of treatment at the base of the house, and I think as a recommended condition of approval, we would just look for a detail to be provided at the time of permitting for this project so that we can confirm that a more traditional detail is achieved at that location. And I know the petitioner has not received a copy of that letter, but I can make that available to the petitioner. Staff is recommending approval of the project. The location of the garage addition is within the required setback areas. This project is scheduled for consideration by the zoning board early next week. So I welcome the commissioner's thoughts, comments, and we are recommending approval with the conditions noted in the staff report.
All right, thank you, Megan. Now is an opportunity for the commissioners to ask questions of either the staff or the petitioner.
Megan, I'll ask you, sorry. Was engineering able to evaluate the turn radius in that driveway and see if there was some sufficient room there?
With the current proposal, the condition on the site, the current condition on the site is not changing. The face of the garage will be in the same location as the current garage. So engineering felt comfortable that based on that, the project appears workable.
Okay. You know, now, I thought about this last time too, and I don't know, I just thought I'd throw it out there. As I was leaving, I thought about this option. Is it an option to continue the driveway from the front of the house and recite the garage, so you're coming from the front of the house instead of the back of the alley?
That would require adding considerable additional impermeable surface, which would mean they would have virtually no lawn except that little spot in the front. Everything else would be pretty much paved over. And making the turn in and out of that garage is much more difficult than going in and out on the north end of it.
Well, I'm thinking maybe like an attached garage, if you go straight back with the driveway, to have a detached garage in the back corner there. I just think, I don't know, I should have presented that last week to you, or last month, because then you would have more room in the back for a garden, and then you wouldn't have to worry about that alley access and the turn radius.
If we put a detached garage to the west of where we're proposing the single garage, there'd be almost no light getting to that, because the height of the building itself is 2 stories all the way back with a 2-foot overhang. So it'd be very little light getting there, and then the light from the west would be blocked by the 2-car garage in there. So we're trying to allow the maximum amount of light to the garden at the north end of where that.
So you did talk about that with your client?
Pardon me?
Did you talk about that option with your client?
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
Other,
Okay.
sorry, did you have another one?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry,
Is
go
it okay?
ahead.
No, go.
Yeah, yeah. No,
If
no,
you
I-
want to
no, no,
follow
I
up on
didn't-
that one, that's okay. You're very anxious tonight.
Sorry.
I just want to ask you about the bay, too. You were going to leave that as wood on the dining room bay instead of stucco?
Yes.
And any reason why you wouldn't stucco
But we
that,
found,
too?
I kind of peeled back one of those AZAC boards, because they're very flexible, and it looks like it was wood originally. And I don't think they would do a bay and stucco the bay, because it's up off the ground, it sticks out of the side of the building, has its own little roof. Just didn't look right as a stucco component.
I have a stuccoed bay.
Yes, you do. I saw that.
So just wonder, I
This
mean,
house-
it is done, but I'm just wondering why they did that.
This house is one of the older 4 squares in town, and I think when it was done, I think that bay was a wood bay.
Okay, so you're just going back to the original. Okay, okay. And let's see, oh, and the stoop, you changed your treatment of the stoop, because before you were going to replace
You didn't like it
it.
so wide, so we
No,
made it
you were going to replace it, it was concrete,
wood.
and you were going to take the concrete away, because you said it wasn't original, and now you're going to leave it as a concrete?
That was a suggestion really from the commission.
Would you prefer it wood?
Well, only if we could make it more horizontal and wider. And we were gonna go out on that garage, we were gonna go out. We were gonna go out to these outside edges of the stucco, so that they could sit out there and do their painting on that front porch. But the suggestion from the commission was, have them open the windows on the porch and look outside through those. So here, it's just a simple set of stairs with a landing at the top.
Okay.
So it also was less money for the owners to do.
And you know, you also mentioned a garden in the back. I didn't see that on your landscape plan. Was there a plan for a
They
garden?
are both artists, and I've done some work on Monet's garden over in France, and he was changing it all the time. And I have a feeling that these artists will change it probably every year. So I don't know what plants they're actually going to put in at the beginning, and they're all going to be annuals, as I understand it, not perennials, which I think would give it a very interesting look, both from the house and from the street, if you can see back that far.
Okay. All right. That's it. Go ahead.
Any other questions? Sorry.
I had a question. I didn't exactly understand the comment that Steph made about the comments from the Lake Forest Historic Preservation Commission. Are you planning on having some of these comments included as conditions or not?
The commission can direct the conditions of approval as part of your motion. As recommended, the idea of having stucco all the way to grade, I agree, may present some issues, as was brought up by the Preservation Foundation in their memo to the commission. So as a recommended condition of approval, updated from the staff report that you received, I would just ask that a detail of that element be provided with the permit drawing so we can clarify what that detail would be.
And the name of the element is,
The condition where the stucco meets the foundation,
Well, they call it a water board or a metal
Waterboard.
drip screed.
The drip- yeah, it could be
If
a
the water
number of
board,
different
if a wooden
treatments.
water board can't be, I think that's what the foundation's talking about.
right.
One or
And
the
so
other.
what staff is saying is that in addition to what's written in the staff report, they think that an appropriate condition to an approval would be appropriate detail of waterboard or drip screed for where the stucco meets.
Or simply how the building meets the ground.
There you go.
The way the building is
Yeah.
constructed, there's a concrete foundation or some kind of other masonry foundation in some of these older areas, but certainly where there's a new garage, there'll be a concrete foundation, and then you'll have a frame building with an exterior stucco. It has to end some way before it hits the ground. So I'm sure the planners could, and the staff could evaluate that condition, make sure it's built in an appropriate manner.
Gotcha.
Can't see it from very many locations.
So that's an additional condition which the staff is recommending.
Recommended. Mhm.
They would probably do that no matter what we said.
Then I was wondering if I heard the answer to the question of whether the engineering staff had evaluated ingress and egress from the garage.
Engineering staff reviewed the preliminary site plans that were presented and did not find an issue with the location of the garage or the manner in which it's accessed from the alley.
I see. And then my last question, I think, is probably best directed to staff also. Does the revised garage plan encroach on rear and side setbacks more or less than the existing garage? Or the same? I guess it's the third alternative.
There's a slight shift in the garage away from the east property line. And the garage is generally in the same location adjacent to the north property line.
A tiny bit less then. And then I think following up on another commissioner's comments, leaving aside other things, has the petitioner considered garage plans which would not encroach on rear and side setbacks?
I don't believe that the garage, the rear setback is, I think, 10 feet. And this garage, I think, is in excess of 10 feet from the rear lot line. And the east side of the house, I believe, is on the side yard setback. And so the existing garage intrudes on that eastern side yard, where the new garage does not.
And so you will no longer need a side yard setback, a side yard variance?
Correct, nor a north yard variance, but.
You will not require a north yard variance?
Right, so but since this garage is closer than 10 feet from the building, we would need to have that done.
Because,
I'm lost.
can you confirm or?
Given the
clarify
unique,
that?
the unique size of this property, the location of the existing house, there really isn't a location that we were able to identify when in working with the petitioner that would not require a variance in one way or another.
Gotcha.
Certainly they could pull the addition off of the east property line, but then you run into functionality challenges with access to and from the alley.
And so just,
So what's the variance that?
so what is the variance? Yes, sir.
What's the side yard setback here?
The side yard setback in this case is 6 feet. The rear yard setback is 35 feet.
Okay, so,
35.
So we're getting a rear yard setback variance?
And a side yard setback
And a
variance.
side
And
yard
those are being reviewed by the zoning board of appeals
And that's
early next
because
week.
it's a replacement structure for the building that would be torn down.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
well, I'm just going to ask you the questions that the foundation, the Preservation Foundation proposed. On the pictures, you're showing that there's the Tyvek wrap around the chimney. That's being removed and
yes.
exposed brick, okay.
Yes.
And then they expressed concern that, in the petition, you talked about the stucco going to grade. They pointed out, and I think that, the commission's concerned that there's going to be a termination at a water board or some other termination before the stucco reaches grade. Is that,
I haven't seen the letter, so I don't know how to comment on that.
okay, so
The
you're,
foundation sticks out past the surface of the wall about 2 inches. So the wall comes down, and the foundation is about 2 inches out from the edge of that wall. I don't know how it once was done, but it looks like it just came down, the stucco comes down and over the top of that, which seals that joint. Normally, it would be the other way around, where the material would be inset from the outside.
And are you proposing a similar detail for the new construction?
is that,
No, because the front porch does not have that.
Yeah.
The front porch goes directly down to grade, and so on the back garage, we were gonna go down to grade. It's only the house itself,
Yeah.
which is just a simple rectangle, that has that
Yeah.
foundation that comes out.
So, it's construction details that I think we can let the staff, work out with you, but I would encourage you to think about how buildings want to move and where appropriate joints are. It's interesting
yeah.
sometimes how folks coated stucco over existing buildings, and I think a lot of the soffits that we see stuccoed, frankly, are a result of, the next guy coming in and stuccoing, but maybe not. And surprisingly, I actually owned a house with stucco soffits that held up very well, despite the,
Most of them that I've seen, and I've pictured here, have stuccoed soffits. Vast majority, they were either stuccoed or aluminum siding.
yeah.
So this-
Let's see if there's any other questions.
That's it for
Any
me.
other questions for, now's an opportunity for the public. If we have any comments or questions from the public, come on up and tell us what you think.
Good evening. My name's Andrew Summelman. I'm here with my wife Audrey. Audrey owns the property at 789 McKinley, which is actually perpendicular to this particular property. And as I just mentioned last month, we were concerned with 3 aspects of the original plan. One, the oversized massive garage didn't fit the area. We didn't think that was appropriate. Secondly, that would have added the risk to the Audrey's rear property, because even with the 1-car existing garage, over the period of years, there have been several occasions in which people have backed out of the existing garage, run into the rear of Audrey's home at the 79 McKinley, because that backs up onto that 10-foot service driveway. So it's really critical as to the placement of the garage. Now, we're impressed with the fact that the plan has been revised and reduced down to a manageable size, but it's really important, I think, if we look at the plans in the north elevation of the house, it shows the garage door to the extreme east side of the building, and that's as it should be to protect the property at 789 McKinley. But that drawing shows the automobile on the west side of that garage, which is going to be the same problem. So assuming that this elevation controls, then that's fine. And we applaud the fact that it's now set back a little bit, which gives an additional, it looks like 2 or perhaps 3 feet for a turning radius, which is going to be important for getting back into that service drive. So I think for the most part, we appreciate what's been done, but we really like this north elevation where that garage door is centered.
Good point, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any other comment from the public?
Can I respond to that?
Why
Let
don't
the-
we, let us finish the public, see if there's any other public comment. Looks like you get to respond, go ahead.
The red area that's shown here is the existing garage. The car is shown equidistant from the two walls of the garage itself. So if I could show that, I think this next plan does it. Here it is, centered within the floor of the garage.
So is the garage door on the north elevation shown correctly?
Yes,
Okay, good,
it's centered in the wall of the floor of the garage.
all right.
The handicap ramp is over here, and that's why it looks like it's off-center.
And is that handicap ramp going to be constructed out of concrete?
I was thinking wood.
I'm just asking.
It's interior,
Yeah,
so I didn't think we needed to do concrete.
I'll let you guys hammer that out with the staff on any building requirement for that. Let me ask another question about the garage door. Sorry to do this during public comments. Is the design of the garage door, is there a completed design intent there, or is that just diagrammatic? What's your
Just diagrammatic.
diagrammatic? What are you thinking that garage door should be? Is it gonna be a solid door? Is it gonna have windows? Do you have a thought on that? I'm not sure I have
There's a
that.
window over here, and then another window over here. And so we thought that might be enough natural light coming in, so nobody's gonna bump
So a
into
solid
anything in
door,
the
yeah.
garage.
Okay. All right. All right, it's opportunity to deliberate, if anyone's got any deliberations.
I just want to thank you for studying other Foursquares, and I think you say it was kind of valuable to get some ideas and see what was happening around here,
A
so.
lot of time in your neighborhood.
Well, thank you. We've got a lot of Foursquares, but I think the result is, a lot better. Thank you for responding to all our suggestions.
Yeah, I would echo what Susan was saying. It's, I especially appreciate you reducing the size of the garage, because it was a very great concern of your neighbors, and they seem to be, happier with this solution. I know in this day and age, everybody wants at least a 2-car garage, if not a 3-car garage, or a 2.5-car garage, and so it's, it's much appreciated. And it looks like you took our comments back and really worked a good solution for this. So I'm happy with this new petition, or this continued petition.
Working with staff really was very helpful.
They're great, aren't they?
Any other deliberations? I'll ask if there's a motion.
I move that we approve the petition as presented, including all the staff recommendations and conditions.
The motion's been made by Commissioner Atkinson. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Rantham. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, and congratulations, you're on.
Thank you very much.
Good luck
Appreciate
with that. All right. We have a,
Can I get those colors back?
sure.
Oh, yeah.
They're right here.
The only sample I have.
All right, our final petition is a consideration of a request for certificate of appropriateness approving a new detached garage at 901 Rosemary Road. This is a new petition. I'll ask if there's any ex parte conflict among the commissioners. And I see none, so come on up and tell us what you got.
Does the petitioner want those materials?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, do you want your stucco?
So, I'm just gonna put this away.
Hey, I'm Gene Martin, and I'm here tonight to discuss an addition to 901 East Rosemary Road. So we've been working with this project and with staff and with the board for 2 years now. And if you've been out there, you've seen what we've been up to. We've completed the restoration of the main house, and we're currently working with a previously approved addition for a 4-car garage and a mudroom addition. And I'm here tonight. We actually have contract purchasers, Mr. and Mrs. Flynn, who are under contract to purchase the property. And the very good news is that they're going to keep all the property together, including the buildable lot. So the entire 5.3 acre parcel will be staying together. And as part of that, they'd like to add this additional garage space. As you can see from, I'll just briefly talk about the property. This is Rosemary Road. There's about 460 feet of frontage along Rosemary. This is where that buildable lot is, which will stay as part of the entire estate. This is the main house, which is about 10,000 square feet, which we've completed, totally restoring the interior and exterior. We're currently working in this area, which is the mudroom and the garage. We're probably about 60% complete with that. And the area that we're talking about tonight is this green space right here, which is a 2-car garage addition. In this elevation, this is depicting the existing house to the left, where we're coming across. This is the addition that's underway right now. At this point, we're completely framed. We're actually, all our interior rough-ins are in place. We're completely drywalled inside. We have heat on. We're beginning to do copper flashing. Slate will be going on next week, and we're starting stucco later this week. It's going to be hit or miss depending on the weather. We're going to have to keep working with that at this time of year. What we're talking about is basically taking, this is the 4-car garage right here. We're talking about constructing a 2-car garage, which will be very similar in elevation to the 4-car. As you can see from the front, they're essentially identical. The distance north to south is just half the distance. There's only two doors, or 2 stalls instead of the 4 over here. We're also talking about constructing a garden wall, which is going to be structured and designed to be as the garden walls were built on the property. Again, if you were out there this week, we've completed the restoration of the driveway walls. And we've completed the stuccoing. We have not painted it yet, but we've completed the curved garden wall along Rosemary Road. This wall will also be 7 feet tall. It'll have a stone cap similar to the other garden walls. And as we go through the slides, I'll show you, it'll have the same curved format that is on some of the other garden walls around the rear of the property. Basically, the design of the garage is a box. It's about 500 square feet. We're well within the building scale ordinance of the property at 5.5 acres. Here again, we've got the existing or under construction garage to the left side right here. This is the proposed identical. It's going to have gable-ended stone caps in limestone. We will be repeating the finial stone element at the top of the ridge, which is repeated on the main house. We're doing stone eyebrows above the windows, which again is a detail on the main house. The walls will be done in stucco, similar again to all the other details on the house. In this elevation, you can see the two-car garage doors, which will be facing the existing under construction four-car. It's going to create a motor court, which I think will be very nice. It has a nice feel to it. It shields the doors from the neighbors, particularly the neighbor to the south. They use the same common service drive going back to their home. This garage will actually shield the look of the four-car from that driveway. Again, and then the garden wall will actually shield from the approach, the entrance driveway. It'll completely conceal the motor court where the cars will be going in and out of the garages. The slope of the roof is the same 1812 slope that we have on the house. And again, as you can see, we've got the stone caps. We've got the custom arched garage doors. This is really very nice. We have these out there now. We're staining those, getting ready to put those up. But they very much look like carriage house, older doors. And we've taken a lot of time to try to get the details properly on those. In this elevation, you can see how the new proposed two-car garage will orient to the four-car and mudroom. This actually depicts the wall with a straight top on it. I'm going to be showing you a later version which we've worked with to emulate the same curved forms that are on the wall in the back. And we've also split it down into the center and opened it up to break the mass of that wall. Here's a plan of how the garage will relate to one another. You'll actually approach this drive court from this area over here and come into this area to enter either the two-car or the four-car. In this elevation, you can see how we've gone forward with this garden wall design. This is very similar to what we have in the back with the radius coming down and then coming back up. We're at 7-foot height. We've got corners which are the same dimension pillars that we have in the back of the house. And again, we've broken this, which will be allow for some additional landscaping and just a break in the wall itself. We're not proposing any changes in the landscape at this time. When you previously approved the four-car addition, we did have a landscape plan which showed shielding of that service drive on this side over here using the evergreens, and we're still proposing that those will stay into the plan. The Flynn's have commissioned Mariani and Associates to do an extensive evaluation of the entire property, and we'll be coming forward to you again with an overall master plan which will be significant as far as landscaping and hardscaping. It will include a pool and significant improvements, which I think you'll be very pleased with. But again, just to summarize tonight, we're here to talk about the two-car garage and review of this to allow us to move forward and try to complete this area of the house.
All right, thank you. Sarah, staff report.
Thank you, Chairman Peretz. I won't go into too many details in my staff comments. I think the petitioner described the project pretty well. There's certainly a full-size model being constructed on the site today, so you can certainly understand the details and the massing of what this garage will be on the property. The comments that I will offer are with respect to the garden wall. I encourage the commissioner's comments on the detail of the wall, the scale of the opening. This rendering looks like it's mimicking a wall that's found in the rear of the property. There are several different types of walls found on the property. So I think the input from the commission would be beneficial for this project, and I know the petitioner has expressed the desire to work to get that garden wall detail to an appropriate detail. So with that, I'll welcome your comments, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Thanks, Megan. Questions for the petitioner or the staff from the commissioners?
I'll go.
Go for it.
Since you're looking at me.
No?
You know, with the split wall, I like I think, you know, that's the swoop is echoing what's already on the property. Just wondering, what is the thought behind having that opening there? Because it almost seems like it's supposed to lead somewhere out or in, which it really doesn't. It's more, I think with the solid wall, you're more like hiding the court. So just wondering why you would split it.
There has been some discussions in the preliminary landscape review of bringing in a drive approach through that, and that's why it's like that. I think it's very much an open design element from the Flynn standpoint, and so we're actually looking for some input from y'all tonight.
So you would kind of come off the new driveway and go in that way as opposed to in the back?
Right, it'd actually not come off of the service driveway in the back.
And why would you prefer to do that?
It's just an idea.
Okay, because it seems like, you know, if you have the solid wall, you're keeping that more like service entrance from the back way.
Right.
That
I
way.
understand.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that would, I don't know, something to think about there. The other question I have about, now on your left side, on the new addition, you're putting dormers on that, right? On the, what is that, the south-facing wall, is it? No, what is it? West-facing. Did you consider putting dormers on the west roof of the new garage? And the reason I ask that is because just wondering if that might be a little friendlier to your neighbors in the back as they're driving by, instead of seeing more utilitarian. I wondered, breaking up that mass of the roof, did you think about putting a dormer up there?
We hadn't, the reason for the dormers are purely functional. We have space above the garage on the 4-car. There's nothing above the 2-car. I think that we're open to adding that if you felt that that was a strong element that you'd like to see.
But you're going to have screening in there anyways, right? You're probably going to have evergreens.
Yes.
Or I'm just thinking to be a better neighbor, it might be a better look if you had dormers
We
up there.
can certainly do that.
Just a thought. Okay, and let's see, what else? The other question I had is, how do you enter the mudroom from your proposed garage? Because it seems from the garage that you're currently constructing, you're entering the mudroom from inside.
All right.
So-
There is a service door on the back,
Okay.
on the south elevation of the addition going up right now. But I think probably there'll be a keypad on one or all of the 4 doors. The intention of the detached 2-car is for specialty cars, not used all daily. And I think he'll probably use a keypad to go through the existing garage.
Okay, so there's not like a need for a back door on the mudroom or anything?
Right.
Okay. Okay. that's
Other questions?
So you're saying that the opening in this proposed wall is there simply because at some point you may want to put a driveway in there?
That's correct.
Okay. Makes it a little hard to evaluate since we really don't know what the conceived finished product is going to be. When you say that you're thinking about that, I mean, how hard are you thinking about that, I guess would be my question. I mean, are we going to see this on the landscape plan that you're proposing? I mean, what's the
Yes,
likelihood
in
of that?
fact, I haven't seen it either. It's beyond my scope of work. Right now, I'm working with them on this 2-car addition, and I have not seen this landscape plan, but I have heard that there could be an access there. That's why we did that.
And what's the length, the size of that opening in feet or inches or whatever?
It's drawn at 11 feet right now, it's width.
Okay, you say drawn at, is that what it's gonna be built at?
Yes.
That's all the questions I have for right now.
Okay, other questions?
I had a couple questions, if I may.
Sure.
My first question, again, was not to beat a dead horse about this opening in the wall.
Sure.
Isn't there a transformer in the middle of that opening?
And that would have to be moved.
Okay, just wondering.
And it would probably still stay behind that wall, so it'll be shielded, but it'll just shift over out of the way of that opening.
And then I had a question, perhaps for staff. Thinking about building scale issues, as I understand it, there are 2 buildable lots here. And in doing your building scale calculations, are you assuming that the area to be taken into account is the area of both buildable lots?
The numbers presented in your staff report are only for Lot 2.
Okay.
It sounds like, though, that both of those lots will be consolidated.
Great. So that, just to make sure I understand, your calculations would indicate that even if the other buildable lot was severed from the first buildable lot, there would be no building scale variance issues here.
Correct.
Building scale issues, I mean. Thank you.
Any other questions? That's good. Any questions from the public or comments from the public? Come on up.
Arthur Miller, 169 Wildwood Road, and I'm here from the Preservation Foundation group. And first off, I think we all have to, I'll certainly say, but the Preservation Foundation, I think, is very happy that this house was saved and that it's handsome. It's like the 565 East Deer Path, which could have slipped away and didn't because of you. And this one could have slipped away and been, you know, maisonettes or something in there, or 2 or 3, I guess. So it's really terrific. And I don't have really any big questions about it. I'm wondering, the house that's the old garage from the original 1890 house that's back there, when they're driving along, how is that motor court, how are they going to relate to this? Is that going to all be handled by landscaping? Is that the idea, that that would be all covered by the evergreens or something that's going in there, or will they be looking into the interior of that court, or their guests that come through there going to that? It'd just be a question to ask if that's how that relates to the other place, which is turned out to be another nice place. And having that wall fixed along Rosemary, that's just huge. I mean, that's a wonderful thing, because that was, everybody worried about that, and it's really a nice amenity, and it's a wonderful thing to see saved and paid forward to the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, it's an opportunity to deliberate, if we have any deliberations.
Well, I think thinking about this and looking at this, personally, I think it would be better to have a solid wall, because first of all, you're screening the motor court from the more elegant front, and also you're kind of including that utility building with the rest of the house, so it looks continuous instead of just sticking out there.
I would think that we could work with that tonight, and then if in a future submittal there was a proposed opening or something, you could then evaluate whether that was a good thing or not.
Well, Megan, are we approving the wall tonight? Are we supposed to be approving it one way or the other, right? So what are we looking at? Are we going to approve this, or how should we approach that?
Well, I think we can approach it however we want.
Is there a possibility that wall could be done, I mean, I don't know if that module is the same as the 2 sides, but that a wall could be in there with a joint at those 2 piers that could easily be removed at some point in the future?
It certainly could, and in fact, from a timing standpoint, with winter upon us and everything, I think that by the time we get this garage, I think you're going to see this additional proposal prior to the construction of that wall. So I would see no issue at all with approving it as a
Just the garage?
Without the wall?
continuous wall or
Without
just
the
the garage. And then you can deal with that when you see the entire
That makes
landscape.
more
Well,
sense.
yeah, see, and my thoughts about it is I didn't like the continuous wall. I like the broken wall, but leading to nowhere is just odd to me.
Right.
And without seeing the whole landscaping plan, I'm not sure that I'm evaluating it correctly, and maybe that's my poor, analysis of this, rather than anything that, the petitioner is doing. So I'm encouraged that, maybe, we could bifurcate this and just approve the garage, which I think is a great addition, or, I think is, works well with what you have there, and we really appreciate what you've done on this property, and bring back the wall, in the spring or whenever you're ready to move forward with that element and see what.
Yeah, actually, I like the notion of approving it with the wall all the way across it for now. We know what that looks like. I think we're comfortable that shields the court from the street. Although I have to say that I think there's promise to relocating the driveway. I think that could be done very well. And I think that when you think about how you approach this house from the street, it's a significant home. It could be done very nicely through the front of this opening as opposed to the rear, and it might even improve the optics of the home behind it, because they're not looking at a driveway anymore. They're looking at what would become more
And
planted
have the
area.
traffic through there.
Right, so,
Yeah.
so I actually would encourage you to develop this further. You might want to think about whether 11 feet is the right spacing for that, or whether the pillars at the opening want to be a little bit lower there, something, there's some refinement that goes along, I think, with the development of that. But I do think there's one other thing to consider, and that is that we're looking at a snippet of this elevation here, and the scale of this pales when you do that. If you go back to the overall, picture of what this home is, this thing is massive, and this is not a big wall relative to what's out there. It's a 10,000 square foot house, and so this is a fairly modest wall. It'll be landscaped well, I'm sure, in any case. So I'm pretty comfortable that it would be executed.
The other thing to think about, if you decide to relocate that driveway and have the opening there, it gives you an opportunity to kind of screen the neighbors in the back more. Maybe you wall in the court from the back like
And
that.
just to share a little bit more with you, there's talk about actually bringing a dedicated single entrance to this home from the east end of the property through the buildable lot. Sweeping it across the front of the house and then coming into that motor court and almost leaving the service drive for 899 Rosemary alone. So that's kind of where that's
Separate
headed.
them. Interesting.
Yeah, well, the approach to the house is really nice now, so that might just work,
And it's
work perfectly fine.
It's
but-
amazing when
but,
you look at
it's-
it from the east as well. It's really nice.
Yeah.
And again, that circle is probably going away. It's going to be a very beautiful motor court in front of the house and that kind of thing.
All right, well, we'll look forward to seeing that. Any other deliberations on this petition? And I think that we should consider it with the full wall, and any modification to that might come with a further landscape plan. If not,
Good with that.
If not, I'll ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
There's a motion coming.
I move that the commission approve a certificate of appropriateness for a new detached garage at 901 Rosemary Road, based on the findings stated on pages 1 through 4 of the applicable reports by city staff dated November 20th, 2013, as well as the testimony submitted to this commission and the commission's discussion. This approval will be subject to the conditions of approval set forth in numbered paragraph, and condition of approval set forth in numbered paragraph 1 on page 4 of the city staff report. And this approval is based on the solid wall connecting the two garages.
All right, the motion's been made by Commissioner Travers. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Alfie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hey, congratulations.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
All right, this is an opportunity for the public to address the Historic Preservation Commission on non-agenda items, if there is any of those. I see one. Come on up, introduce yourself.
It's never happened before since I've been on.
Good
Before 10
evening.
o'clock.
Pauline Moore, 927 Barclay Circle. Since you had that Market House restaurant on the agenda tonight, I spent quite a bit of time in Market Square today, and so noticeable the variety of color and style of awnings around the square and even on, some of the entrance streets. So with the sale of that property, I'm thinking that we might give some consideration to setting some standards on color and design of the awnings. I mean, some are striped, some are light green, some are what we call Lake Forest green, some have scallops with white trim, some are very squared off, and it's really starting to look a little disconcerting if you really, take a look at the architecture and the awnings. So that's all I wanted
All
to
right, thank you.
Thank you.
put out. Thank you.
Any other public comments? All right, I see none. Any additional information from the staff?
In response to Ms. Moore, I will mention that the new owners of Market Square have expressed an interest in working with the commission and establishing standards for awnings and signage. I think you can expect a significant amount of work to go on in the square, restoration work, some facade improvements, and they're very interested in working with the commission in whatever capacity is appropriate as they move down the road.
Well, we are excited to hear that because I think in our travels over the last few years, we've seen plenty of opportunity for, maintenance, repairs, tuck pointing, that kind of thing. I think there's been quite a bit of deferred maintenance there. And also on the awnings, we know we've talked about that many times for specific petitions. I think it's a really opportunity for the new owners to help us set those standards as opposed to have us set those standards for them. So I would encourage their involvement in getting ahead of us on that. I think that might help both of us. So that's good. Any other comments?
I would just add that the commission is not scheduled to meet until next January, so I wish everyone a happy holiday season. We'll
Wow,
see you in
that's the
2020.
first
Happy holiday to you.
first happy holidays of the year for me. All right, well, I look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Ransom. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's seconded by Commissioner Travers. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And good night. Thank you.
Thank you.